Welcome to the Four Rooms podcast, where we explore the four rooms of entrepreneurship: health, wealth, scale, and relationships. Each episode is dedicated to opening new doors and uncovering insights that empower you to design your entrepreneurial journey to be both lucrative and fulfilling. And now, your hosts, Amber Spears and Brett Kaufman.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Four Rooms podcast. I am your host, Brett Kaufman. I'm joined with Phil. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell the audience where you're based out of.
I'm from Quebec, Canada. I'm a French Canadian.
He's a French Canadian. Now, you were telling me a little bit off camera, but I always love for people to know how you found us. How did you come into our orbit?
Well, I'm very interested in podcasting. I've always liked that format and I want to do more. I'm launching a book in September, and I was looking at the thousands of podcasts, and yours really stood out because I feel like we're really aligned from our conception of the entrepreneurial experience, where it's not just business, it's also health, family, it's energy. There's a bunch of other things, and if you just focus on one room, you're never going to make it.
You mean you can just sell for us? That was a great description of what we do. So thank you for that. Now, were you always that way, or did that evolve to focus on the four rooms?
No, I think it's always been kind of my secret power, because I stumbled into business. Originally, the degree behind me was to be an high school teacher, but we were very poor, so that brought me into sales, and sales brought me into business because I was good at that, and it made me open up to that possibility. I started buying real estate properties when I was at the university, and so I was really torn between these identities. And eventually I decided, as a call to adventure, my colleague told me, hey, if you don't go in business, you're going to be a wasted potential. And for some reason, that's really my call to adventure. And I went into B2B sales. I always had the sense that if I worked on my personal growth, that would be my edge. And it turned out to be true all across the board, from being in the corporate world for Bayer, AB InBev, Roche, big companies like that, all the way to my own journey as a serial entrepreneur and investor.
Wait, why did it take us so long to connect? Like, you literally, that's like our whole entire community is all about investing in yourself. We just had one of our members, David Bayer, through an event in Austin, and like a bunch of us flew there. Like, we're all about, if you're not the best. Actually, so what I loved is he was saying from stage, he did a great job pitching from stage. I love a good sales pitch. And he was talking about how he was meeting with his mentor, who was doing so well in business, obviously. And David said how he felt guilty not taking money, putting enough money into his 401k. And then he was like, well, the mentor was like, how much are you earning? And he was about like 8 to 10% a year on his investments. And then he was like, well, how much are you earning in your business? And he's like, more than that. So he's like, why wouldn't you take all your money, invest into you and your business? And that was like that light bulb moment. And I've been in the game for 5 years, but it's just like another reminder of like, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I am the best investment I can make.
It is. And also, it's not just investing to be a better business operator. It's also investing to have a better life in general. That's a different kind of return.
Yeah, 100%. And so how old were you when you started the transition? Because now you've sold one of your businesses for 8 figures. So
Yeah.
I definitely want to dive into that.
Yeah. So I began B2B corporate sales around 23, I believe, years old. And then when I was about 30, I think, I started to explore entrepreneurship, because I could see a pattern where I was really excited about figuring it out, and then out competing my colleagues, and building that traction as a business development person. But then I got bored and I wanted another challenge, and that made me think. At the time, it wasn't as popular as today to be an entrepreneur, so I kind of stumbled into that as well. I partnered with a group of people like me, a physician, an accountant, a physical therapist, that were doing business on the side. And that pivoted into my first business that I eventually sold when I was 32. So that was in 2021.
Well, I'm sorry, you started your business at 30 and sold it for 8 figures 2 years later?
Yeah, it was a crazy story, because we pivoted and we were able to catch the COVID craziness, and the pivot was aligned with that. And so that allowed us to expand in a crazy fashion.
What was the business?
So we were originally reselling. We were acting as a buying department, an external buying, purchasing department for local health centers that were not big enough to have someone in charge of purchasing. So it was all over the place. They were getting ripped off. And so we were centralizing purchases, helping them save and keeping a portion of the saving. That was the basic business model. We were doing it part-time. Then eventually we got traction. We scaled pretty fast. But then when COVID hit, we were blocked by our suppliers. We couldn't order anymore, and to keep their business and maximize their profit from the crisis, the manufacturers were putting their customers on an allocation. So we couldn't buy more than the average of the last 12 months that we had ordered. And so we had to cut 50% of our customer. And at that point, it was just basically me and my colleague Danny grinding it out. And we were already kind of, all right, this is really worth our time, considering, we have 3 passive shareholder. And so I was at the crossroad of just shutting it down or pivoting it. And what I did is I, kind of pivoted towards importing a nitrile glove, which I thought that was harder to copy. And long story short, I was able to sell to the government here. We've sold $70 million worth of product in about 8 months, and we actually delivered the products. We bootstrapped it, and then I expanded internationally. I won Sacramento County in California, big groups like Health Pro in Canada, and then that was kind of the beginning of my journey.
That's amazing. Now, we often hear that what is it, like it took me 10 years to become an overnight success, or the hockey stick approach, and that often. When I hear that, I often hear like people saw the opportunity. They were prepared on the skill set side and the networking side, but saw the opportunity. How did you see this opportunity?
So I was in that industry a little bit, not directly because our business model was basically reselling from distributors. I had never imported. I didn't know about Health Canada certification, FDA, and all. None of that. I had to learn on the spot in a world crisis. So that led to a lot of mistakes. But I was at least in the game. And I think entrepreneurship, a big shift that founders realize once they start to actually take ownership of that new identity that they're building, is that they attract opportunities that they would have never thought would come their way. Because suddenly you don't talk like a student, you talk like a CEO to a CEO. Yeah. And that's a different kind of respect. And you also brings value because you're actually committed to something. You have risk, skin in the game, so you know that your word has a different weight, and so that just creates a whole new frame of thinking and a whole new line of opportunities. And I guess that's how I kind of pivoted the right way.
That's how I can tell you've been in the personal development space, because you're just talking about identity, stepping into like all like the big things. So how did you prep yourself to become that person before you actually became that person?
Well, chasing identity was always something very important to me. So I've done personal growth program, heroic.us. I don't know if you know about Brian Johnston. No. I've done this coaching program. I love the guy. It's really good what they're doing over there. And they have a similar approach to you, where he encourages, it's not just for entrepreneurship, it's for life in general, but to think in 3 buckets of energy, love, and work, and kind of create an identity for yourself in each bucket. Associate virtues to each identity, and then operationalize your next goal so that you feel a sense of progress towards becoming that person. And that was already in place for me before stepping into entrepreneurship.
That's cool. I about a year ago I started doing improv, and that to me was like such like. So I don't know about you. I'm analytical and thinking. And so sometimes it's very much like A equals B, B equals C. Like what's the steps? Show me the process. And improv is so not like that. It's just like, so like what a fun exercise, learning how to get in my head, into my heart. But like you said, stepping in to someone, each scene I do, I need to be something like a doctor to like a mom to someone that smokes cigarettes to like a 4-year-old boy. Like it's just, you just have to rotate. So it's just been such a fun thing for you, training that muscle. Cause I don't know if you had this problem. For me, it was like when I went through these courses, I was like, okay, I get it logically, but it wasn't sticking. And it was taking me a lot longer to internalize. I feel like now, and it was a muscle building. I knew I had to keep doing it. So now it's like, I feel like I've done something creative to really ingrain that muscle. So now it helps me like go from head to heart a lot faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's also something I realized a bit later because if you are too much into identity building, you sometimes get too much in your head because you can
Yeah.
think your way through an identity. But I think a big part of the lessons I've learned through the ups and downs of the last 5 years is reconnecting with our intuition. And I think
Yeah.
as founders and entrepreneur, that's so important. So you need these analytical frame to create a space between not being too much into your personal experience and being able to kind of step out, but then you need to kind of anchor into your intuition to decide how you pursue these identities and who you're actually becoming and transforming into.
Yeah, I found like for me, it's like once a quarter, I need to do something like I call like a big play activity, whether it's like a festival with friends, whether it's like a personal development conference, whether it's just like, they have like, improv shows, like festivals down here, just like something. And that helps me because it helps me reset, right? Just like, hey, here's a weekend. You can just be completely silly, get out of
Yeah,
your head and like that. So what do you do to get yourself out of your head into your body more?
it's a good question. I mean, one thing. So I guess to circle back maybe to a concept that I want to promote this year a little bit. It's more around the entrepreneurial experience, but I feel like when you go into entrepreneurship, you hit a point where you enter what I call the shadow of entrepreneurship, which is when uncertainty, fear, and ultimately unworthiness can get into play, and that leads to failure and a crossroad. And so, what I'm putting in place for myself now is to learn to just sit and watch the world burn for a while, and not realize that you don't have to put out all the fires.
Yeah,
It's never as bad as you think,
that's true.
and then from that place kind of reconnect to an expanded sense of self and listen to what I call the whispers of transformation. It's a poetic way to frame it, but it's kind of what I feel. It's my way to understand how it feels to have your intuition whisper to you and reconnect to that, because it's never growth is a shouts in your head. And it's like, especially if it's fear controlled.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, you need to win back that last mistake. You need to grow. You need to do that. But then the whisper is what you really have to listen to, and that leads to the pivot, that leads to the transformation, and that leads to reconnecting with who you should become.
So I love that you said that. Do you ever done any Bob Proctor trainings?
I I haven't, but I know who he is.
So that's how one of the first people I started with. And there was a my coach, because like I went through a Bob Proctor coach. He would always say to me like my big thing is I needed to slow down to speed up. And I also started in sales. I actually was in political fundraising, a bipartisan organization. So I got both sides of the aisle to yell at me, which was really fun.
Hmm.
But I was really good at it. And like you, it's like chasing the leaderboard. I also loved the mission. So I was like the mission, like
Yeah,
everything. But I kept thinking hustle harder, which is like such, I feel like this happens, I'm going to generalize. I feel like around younger men entrepreneurs, the hustle harder is such an ingrained belief.
yeah,
And it also works. Like it got me to a level, but to get me to the next level, I knew I needed to slow down and speed up, but it didn't compute. Um, but I found now, like the less I do, the more money I make. And it's not like doing actual less. It's like having time to breathe, letting like taking a full day or two if I need to, just like do nothing. You're not even gonna think about work. Like just do whatever. Go into nature. Go to the beach because I'm in Miami. And I found that that is what allows me to do so much more during the week, which is
yeah.
a blessing. Do you have similar things that you do to let your intuition really build up?
Yeah, I have 3 kids too, so it's chaotic all over the place here. So it's harder for
Yeah.
me at this stage of my life. But I do take the time. And, if I wake up someday and I don't feel clear and I can feel that I'm in the shadow, I can feel I'm questioning everything. And then I'm fearful and I just want to do something and fix something. I just take a nap, pause, do whatever else. And then the next day, come to realize, hey, I'm doing great. There
Yeah.
was not a crisis. It's just in my mind.
I like that. Yeah. Someone said that to me. They're like, so many of the world's problems can be solved by a good night's sleep.
Yeah, definitely. And
And
that
it's
was
like,
a big challenge for me because I was doing international business development. So during my first business, I was working all night in China, Thailand, and then the day I had to sell and I had to make sure that the logistics, because I was the center player for all of that sourcing and selling. And it ruined my health through time because all the businesses that I've been involved since then, I've always been all over the world. And I had to kind of put my foot on the ground and say, okay, now I need my 7 hours of sleep because I'll be 400 pounds in before I'm 40. Just, letting my health go sideways. Even though you have your boundaries, sleep is such a powerful hormone regulation tool and just mental health must.
Oh, it's the best medicine for your body.
Yeah.
100%. I want to give you some opportunity to talk about your upcoming book. What are you talking about?
So it's going to be around mastering the shadow of entrepreneurship, and it's really going to deep dive into my experience as a founder, as a big risk taker, and the failures that I have gone through, and the lessons that I pulled from that that are now helping me transform into a better version of myself as an entrepreneur. And I think that it's going to be very helpful for the idea ecosystem of entrepreneurship. And I decided to do it now. It's always been a dream of mine. When I began my entrepreneurial journey, I thought I'm going to set myself 3 goals: to not have my kids be poor like I was when I was growing up, pay my parents' retirement, and have a positive impact on the world. When I made my exit, I thought I was at that stage, but I still felt like I had to go through more entrepreneurial journey to really master the process before I could teach and help people. And last year, I worked with a TED coach just to help me pick these golden nuggets and make them into something I can actually talk about. And I was so happy with the result that I thought maybe now is the time to actually write the book about it. And I got a TEDx at Harvard in November, and some positive signals that it could be valuable. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it this upcoming November or the past November?
No, upcoming November.
I love that. Well, they don't record those, do they? They do record them.
Yeah. It's going to be online. I don't know, maybe in December or January, but
it's
going to be great.
They have a TEDx down here coming in Miami, and I love going to them. It's just like the brilliance of people. I think you would do so well in our community because we're grateful. We're about 200 plus founders. They're between 7 to 9 figures, the average being 8. But you don't know how wealthy someone is in business in the room because everyone leaves their ego at the door, and they start with like, how can I best serve you? And the conversations like the conversations we're having now, it's like, how do we raise our intuition so we can listen better to it? What's the impact that we're making? And because of all that, we make more money due to that process. It's like finding this has been such a beautiful family that I didn't know I needed, and I'm so grateful I have because I couldn't imagine life without it. So I think you would thrive and fit in just with the culture of the people there.
I think too. And this year I've recently joined Entrepreneur Organization, EO.
Yeah.
So it's my first community kind of thing that I joined, and I really like it. I want to double down on that because I think it's so valuable, and yours just looks really great.
Cool. So we do something towards the end of the show called One Hot Minute. Now, 1 hot minute is I'm going to give you 60 seconds to share a tidbit, or just like it could be a belief, it could be a mantra, it could be like a lesson that changed your life. That if someone just listened to these 60 seconds, they're going to get wisdom from it.
So the Courage Compass is something I realized because I've one of my strengths is taking risk. I'm very good at managing that. I'm comfortable in risk. I'm a good visionary type profile. But I realized later that we kind of have a courage comfort zone. And as entrepreneurs, we have to move away from hustling at some point and become a leader. And that comes with making a lot of decisions. And when you're in the shadow, your natural tendency come out. You're going to be, under pressure. So you have to, for example, fall into one of the 4 quadrants of natural thinking patterns, which is relational thinking, like a red pattern, a structural thinking, analytical thinking, or conceptual thinking. And if you don't take the time to create some space and look at, okay, if I were an analytical thinker, how would I decide? What would be my decision? And kind of realize that there's a bunch of different answers that you can have towards the same question. You have your natural tendency, and that in the past brought me into loopholes of just kind of failing because I'm very creative. So I kept imagining a million pathways. And then my next strength is relational. So I kept looking for partnership. But then sometimes I just had to sit down and be green and, think structurally and just get some things done. That's my weak point. Yours is different, and you have a comfort zone. Even if you think you're being courageous, you have a decision-making comfort zone. So I would say, to conclude my long minute, is go through that exercise, create the gap, and then ask your intuition to whisper which quadrant you need to go in today.
how did you start figuring out this process? Was it like a quiz you took, like a Myers-Briggs?
No, well, it's a bunch of things. So first of all, emergenetics is what inspired me to do that. And right now I'm doing a new offer for founders and leaders. I call it the Clarity Sprint, where we start with that. I have a world-class expert in my team, Chief Transformation Officer. We go through your natural emergenetics thinking pattern. And in Fortune 500 companies, I've worked with so many trainers. She's above and beyond anything I've seen. So I'm so glad to have her. And then we go into visionary assessment, where we deep dive in your business, we identify kind of growth strategies and opportunities that might be great for you. And I have an integrator that steps in, structures the next 2 weeks, and we move into execution. And that it's a 30-day sprint. So I like working with emergenetics and combining my failures and experience that led me to make the TED Talk to the work that we're doing with emergenetics kind of made me realize that could be a great frame. And now I'm building my own for next year, if things go well, to be more specifically around decision making, because I think it's missing.
Oh, that's great. I'm excited to watch this back and start doing it myself. So where can people best find you so they continue to learn more about you?
I publish a lot on LinkedIn or my website, philneal.com. These would be the two best places.
That's how we connected, was LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. All right, my friend, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks,
this is I love that you automatically embody what we stand for as a community. That's why I was like, oh, this is going to be great from the moment I heard you talk.
Yeah, I love that. I love the talk. And let's talk more about your community.
Looking forward to it.
As we wrap up today's episode, we have something special just for you. If you've been inspired by what we've explored today and you're ready to take your learning to the next level, then our 4 Rooms Mastermind live event is the perfect next step. And because you're a part of our podcast family, we're offering an exclusive 10% discount on your registration when you apply and are accepted. This is your chance. It's your chance to build relationships with other ambitious entrepreneurs like yourself, to dive deeper into the 4 rooms of entrepreneurship, and to connect with experts who can truly help accelerate your growth. Simply follow the event link in the description of this episode and use the promo code 4rooms10. That's FOURROOMS10 on your application to claim this opportunity. This offer is subject to application approval and it's limited, so don't wait too long to make your decision. Join us and transform your journey with the insights and networking that only our live events can offer. Thank you for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you at the event and, of course, right back here next time on the 4 Rooms podcast. Until then, keep balancing and keep growing.